You're listening to Soundside. I'm Libby Denkman. At the start of every week, I sit down with another journalist to talk about the biggest news developing right now and how it affects the Pacific Northwest. And joining me today is a voice that folks who listen to Soundside might recognize, maybe from the credits, maybe from some of your reporting on the show. Maleeha Syed, producer on Soundside. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here. Yeah. I usually see you from the control room doing
this. I know.
This.
we have no glass in between us right now. We get to chat about news stories and some stories we've been working on together. So I think that's pretty cool. And coming up, we are going to be getting into a little bit of the story that we've been working on for some time, this Aurora Avenue North situation with sex trafficking and what the city's doing about it. But first off, the top story of the day. Here's our first one on Front Page. Die, die, ego. Okay, of course, everybody knows the World Cup anthem by now. Do you? I don't know. I haven't been hearing it very much. That's Shakira. In case you haven't noticed, the biggest sporting event in the world is on our doorstep in Seattle today. Seattle's hosting its first World Cup match with Belgium versus Egypt, hitting the pitch. Actually, as I talk right now, they have already kicked off. All morning, fans have been arriving at what FIFA wants us to call Seattle Stadium instead of Lumen Field. And KUOW's Casey Martin is right outside the stadiums. He has been talking to fans and everybody about the atmosphere so far today. Casey Martin, how are you doing? How's it going?
Things are great, Libby. Thanks for having me. We're dancing to Shakira. It's a fantastic vibe here in Pioneer Square.
Yeah, that's the party that we're looking for. So what kinds of stuff did you see this morning, smell, hear? What was it like?
Well, the first thing I smelled early this morning around 6:45 a.m. was the smell of grilling hot dogs, because that is when the streets have been lined with so many food carts. I've never seen so many food carts in Pioneer Square. There's so much energy, a lot of people walking through. Everybody's in different kinds of jerseys and uniforms. A lot of people have their faces painted. And it's really fun to walk around Pioneer Square, as this is a big pedestrian zone, so there's no cars, there's very few bikes and scooters, and the streets are packed full of people walking around.
And who did you talk to so far? Got to be a lot of folks excited about the game.
A lot of fans pumped up. I did speak to some Team Egypt fans. I talked to James and Janelle Francis. And James Francis, he had this prediction for Egypt, which is the underdog, but he's feeling pretty good for Team Egypt today.
I think they'll get out of the group stage. First time ever. They haven't won a game in the World Cup, so we're hoping to get one of these three.
All right.
And Yeah, and they came all the way from New York, and I spoke to Janelle Francis, who said why it was so important, why she wanted to come 3,000 miles to see this World Cup.
We don't know when the World Cup will come back to the U.S., so it's really exciting to be able to see it in our home country.
Celebrate Mo Salah, one of the best players ever.
Yeah,
so we're going to get in there. Yeah, last time through. It's his birthday today, so hopefully get a dub.
Yeah, they're rooting on the Egypt star, Mohamed Salah, who is 33 years old today, and he's just a few feet away, just on the other side of that block. I could almost see him, Libby.
Casey, it's Maleeha. I'm wondering, what does transportation and the logistics look like around the stadium? I know the city's been working to streamline it. What's your experience been like so far? Does it seem like everything's going smoothly?
For the most part, with thousands and thousands of people packing into one neighborhood, it feels like most people have been doing a good job of just walking to Pioneer Square. I'm not seeing a lot of Ubers pull up. I'm not seeing a lot of car traffic. A lot of people have either stopped and got breakfast somewhere else in the city, and then have been walking all this way since. It's a beautiful day downtown. There is been a problem with bike parking. A lot of people have shown up and they have tickets to get into the game, but they're trying to find a safe place to park their bike. And things like that have been kind of a pinch point. But like I said, there's just tons of people walking through. And for the most part, people who got off the train, I talked to people who rode the ferry in, said that it was pretty smooth sailing coming in.
Nice. Casey, anything else that you've seen as you've been out just taking it all in ahead of Seattle's very first World Cup match as a host city?
It's been fun to talk to people who either work or live in Pioneer Square. There's a lot of bartenders here who say they love this environment. I talked to one volunteer who said, I've worked at the Olympics before, and this kind of feels like an Olympic village. They have this area all closed off. Everyone's feeling really, really good. And there's this kind of feeling of maybe we could have the pedestrian zone, longer beyond the World Cup. So that might be a further conversation.
Casey Martin, KUOW's World Cup correspondent today. Thank you so much. It's a tough gig, Casey. Somebody's got to do it, though.
Yep, anytime. Thanks.
Thanks, Casey.
Thank you, Casey. And Maleeha, I've never done anything like this before. And just, prepare. We might have like a cringe mountain to climb
I'm
here.
ready.
But I have a special correspondent inside the stadium.
Yes, you do.
And this was some breaking tape that we just received. And this is actually from my brother-in-law's brother. My sister, my brother-in-law, and his brother are all there inside the game, which, again, just kicked off between Belgium and Egypt. And Jared Miklos, my brother-in-law's brother, just filed this preview of the game. So here he is as a sports correspondent for Soundside.
Stadium's filling up quite nicely. It's a sea of red, which represents both Belgium and Egypt, but I think the pre-game cheer was a little bit louder when they announced Egypt. Teams are in the locker room. We'll see them walk out in just a few minutes. But right now, fans are taking pictures, looking pretty excited to kick off the World campaign in Seattle. This is an interesting matchup. Belgium, certainly the favorite on paper. They're going to play in the same formation, both teams 4-2-3-1, and certainly a team that has been number one in FIFA rankings previously. Belgium should come out on top, but Egypt's got two excellent strikers, one from Liverpool, one from Man City, and Mo Salah jerseys are everywhere around the stadium. Got a prediction from my seatmate here for the game. Belgium really strong, but I'm going the Pharaohs are going to upset them with a Mo Salah goal. Is that 1-0? 1-0. Okay, I don't know if I'd agree, but let's see. We're on records for 1-0 from Seattle. Enjoy the games.
Okay, thank you to the
That's incredible.
Miklos brothers for turning into sports correspondents. Jared works in the soccer industry. If you couldn't tell, he knows a little something.
I was going to say that sounded very professional.
Yeah, so thank you for that. Most Salah jerseys, I guess, not a surprise, right? That is sort of the most popular jersey. I mean, what are your reflections, Maleeha, so far? What is it feeling like so far to be in Seattle as we're hosting these games?
Yeah, it's fun. I was walking into work today, and as I was coming up, I looked to my left, and there was this big group of people, a lot of kids, red jerseys. Some of them had, which I just saw on TV, the Pharaoh headdresses for Egypt's national team.
Yes.
And so it's fun. On Saturday, I was on I-5. I saw a truck with the Morocco flag. You can just tell people are so invigorated, and it's bringing everyone out of the woodwork. People are so ready to just show up for their team.
Yeah, I was really jealous on the train on the way in today because I was going to work and all of these people were already ready to have a beer.
Right. They're having hot dogs.
Going and having so much more fun. One of my favorite storylines locally has been that Egypt's home base as a national team is Spokane. It's actually Gonzaga University. They're using that soccer pitch there at the school as their training grounds. And they hosted a public, you had to win a lottery to actually get inside, but a, public training session so you could watch. And I mean, it is not an overstatement to say this is probably the biggest athlete in the Premier League. He is Mo Salah, one of the greatest strikers ever to play in the Premier League. He is won all the league titles with Liverpool. He's won all the major Player of the Year awards. He's leaving Liverpool now, but you heard that a lot of the jerseys in that stadium are probably Mo Salah jerseys because there's a lot of Liverpool fans locally. But the image of him just kind of walking around downtown Spokane,
So sweet. Yeah, just shopping, frequenting, dining. I think it's really exciting. Seattle is a major city. Washington, obviously, we have a lot here, but it doesn't feel like we get this level of celebrity in our community that often. And I think it's just exciting to see some of these international stars coming through and just hanging out on the streets and, gearing up for these massive games. It's just incredible.
Yeah. Well, I've definitely caught the spirit. I watched, more than half a dozen games over the weekend.
Yeah, watched a lot.
USA Paraguay was the most inspired I've ever seen a USA team play. There was real poetry. We scored the most goals we've ever scored in a national, in a World Cup game. Just incredible now to see them coming back. The USA team will be playing on Friday against Australia in Seattle, and the anticipation for that is already at a fever pitch after watching what happened on Friday.
Yeah, on Friday, I didn't realize what was happening because I live close to a lot of bars and I just heard cheering and USA and I didn't realize, but obviously they did so well that day. So yeah, super fun. I'm looking forward to getting in the spirit a little bit more.
Let's turn the page for our second story on Front Page. And this one is about officiating. It's also about what happens when a really elevated level of scrutiny on immigration and visitors to this country collides with a major event like the World Cup. I don't know if you remember, Maleeha, but a few weeks ago, the Seattle mayor scored a big win when she announced that 1,400 tickets for the World Cup would be provided for free to youth groups around the Seattle area so they could go and experience the games. Well, one of the 40 groups that received some of those free tickets is called the African Youth Sports Academy, and they're based in South King County. They run clinics and camps and things like that. The group announced last week that no thank you. They are returning the tickets, and founder and executive director Ali Abdullah told the Seattle Times that they would be doing so in solidarity with the first Somali referee selected to officiate a World Cup game, who was denied entry to the United States earlier this month. Omar Artan was turned away at the Miami airport. He said he had all the required visas ahead of time. The Trump administration claimed he had, quote, association with suspected members of terror organizations. They didn't specify any more detail or what evidence they were pointing to for this when the New York Times asked for more information. Ali Abdullah told the Seattle Times that this was just heartbreaking to decide to return the tickets, but collectively, parents and community members made the call to return them to show support for Omar Artan. Quote, we have to sacrifice because our son, we have to make him feel like he is not alone. Just a really remarkable local connection and reaction to, again, what's become a pattern across these games, fans, different members of organizations being turned away. Your reaction, Maleeha?
Yeah, I mean, these tickets, as we know, they go for hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's really expensive to get them. So it's a big statement to return something like that and to return so many. I also think it's probably really heartbreaking to see someone from Somalia have this very close opportunity to be on an international stage. Somalia did not qualify for the World Cup finals, but this was huge. It was a really big deal. And it's just one of several examples of people who have been detained at airports or they're not allowed to basically come into the country at all to see the World Cup. And it's in this bigger context of the Trump administration restricting tourist visas and travel visas.
At the same time, the World Cup is really just this example of the way that our interconnected globe plays out in different societies. Like, if you look at just the Australia game, they really surprised Turkey with a 2-0 win over the weekend. And Australia released a video of its team basically saying all these different countries that they either were from originally before they came to Australia as immigrants or refugees, or where their parents are from. And it's all over the globe. It is Africa. It is Europe. It is everywhere. And they are coming together and representing Australia, under the same flag, with the same jersey on. And it really does. I mean, for example, the U.S. striker who scored 2 goals on Friday, Folarin Balogun, he was born in Brooklyn to Nigerian parents. He moved to the UK soon after he was born, and he grew up in London. He could have played for London, for Nigeria, or for the United States, and the United States was able to win him over, and he's become this huge, impactful player on our team. And it really, that feels like what the World Cup is all about. But then you have these instances like what happened to the Somali referee that really reminds you there are still these barriers and, some people who say that, we should be reducing immigration.
Yeah, I'm remembering we had Albert Samaha on a couple of months ago. He wrote a piece for The New Yorker basically talking about how this is the first time that we've seen a host country ban tourists en masse. We've never really seen this scale before. And so it's interesting because it's a rare opportunity for the United States to host and show and bring all of these people together, but so many are being denied entry. Yeah. And so many are scared to even come. A lot of fans are anxious to even make the trip because they don't know what they'll encounter.
Yeah. We're going to turn the page now to our third story on Front Page.
For weeks, neighbors living near Aurora have been sending a clear message. People are tired of hearing gunfire in the middle of the night.
So we've been talking for some time about the escalating gun violence on Aurora Avenue North, which law enforcement says is related to sex trafficking in the neighborhood. Neighbors have been calling for action. They staged a march earlier this month to call attention to the situation. I attended that march, and they were demanding the city do something to fix it, to solve the violence. Well, city leaders held a press conference on Thursday and said, here's what we're going to do. The mayor is closing several streets between 96th and 102nd and Aurora, and the city attorney is moving to start using a new tool to try to take guns away from pimps and sex traffickers. That tool is called an Extreme Risk Protection Order, or ERPO, which is usually reserved for domestic violence cases or cases of mental illness. So basically, if somebody is not yet charged with a crime, prosecutors can still ask a judge to block them from having guns, and violating that order is a felony. Maleeha, we have been talking about this story for a while now. What do you make of the latest, what we heard from the city?
Yeah, this clearly was in response to a lot of people saying both the mayor and the city attorney have been taking not enough action in Aurora Avenue, which, to be fair, I mean, this is an ongoing issue. We've been seeing this level of activity for years, and it's ebbed and flowed. And I think this most recent measure is an attempt to address those concerns, and it does seem in line with what I think a lot of people have been calling for. I have a hunch that people are still going to be a little bit skeptical. I understand that you spoke to someone today, a little bit, a resident who had thoughts about that.
I did, yeah. Peter Orr, who has lived in the neighborhood, this North Aurora corridor. And if you visualize like where the Oak Tree Plaza is across the street there, and kind of, you know, the 5-10 blocks around that area in North Aurora, Aurora Avenue North, that's where we're talking about. So Peter's been there for a long time. He says he's never seen violence like he has for the past few years. He was at the press conference on Thursday with a big sign that said, "Smash the Pimpriarchy," because that's what he wants the city to try to do, interrupt this sex trade that is driving the violence. So he responded to what the city had announced. Peter said he is frustrated that it will take still 2 weeks to close the streets. And he said that doesn't seem like immediate action. He said he's confused about some of the street closure choices because on 96th, for example, there is a downtown emergency services center location that needs some emergency vehicle access. Whereas 97th, where there is this hotbed of activity, according to him, they're going to use traffic calming measures, some more staggered barriers instead of the solid barrier. And he says that the city, because of this, it still feels like they're being slow to react. But he's keeping an open mind, especially about the emergency protection orders. He's talked to Erica Evans' office, the city attorney, and they've pointed out that these ERPOs are a fast track to a possible felony. So the SOAP order, which a lot of neighbors have been asking for Erica Evans to enforce, she has said, you know, that she thinks that it is racist policy and not effective. This would mean that a judge can order people who are accused of sex trafficking to stay out of the area, so stay out of area of prostitution. The ERPOs would go directly for the firearms, which are being used, obviously, in these shootings. But the problem that Peter Orr told me about is that he's skeptical because many of the sex traffickers have unregistered guns. So how do you enforce something if you don't know what weapons they have?
Right.
So that's the thing that he's still a little confused about. He said he's still skeptical and wants neighbors to keep up pressure on City Hall. And one last thing that Peter emphasized is that he is annoyed when he hears the mayor and others say that this violence is unacceptable to them, because it does feel like the city tolerates violence in this area of Aurora, kind of like they tolerate violence on 12th and Jackson, and that in some areas it's like this is sort of a contained space and the city looks the other way. What do you think, Maleeha, about what we heard from Peter?
Yeah, I think that the criticisms right now are largely that people feel it's concentrated in these areas, and when an action is taken, it's not getting at the root cause. It's just shuffling stuff around. That's been, by and large, the critique of these soap and soda orders: stay out of areas of prostitution, stay out of drug areas. Laws, they would restrict activity in certain areas. And like you said, Evans has been pretty vocal about not enforcing it. So
But it would just push it to another area, basically. That's
area.
the argument against them.
Yeah, exactly. So we're hoping to speak with Erica Evans this week to hear a little bit more about this latest action and also some former council members, current council members, about what the best option is for Aurora Avenue. But it's just been an ongoing issue, and I think everyone is on the same page about wanting to address it. They just have very different approaches on how to do that. And I think it's so ongoing that people are just fed up and they would like to see change now.
You know, the one thing we did a story about this last week where we talked to the prosecutor's office. We talked to some advocates who were trying to both stop sex trafficking and one advocate who has lived experience of sex work and then also provides services to sex workers on Aurora. The one thing they all agreed at, even if they do not come at this from a similar angle at all, was that there are not enough services for women who decide they want to get out of the life, who are trying to get away either from sex trafficking or who decide they don't want to do the work anymore. Mm-hmm. There are not shelter beds that people who make relationships with these often women say, okay, somebody comes to me and they say, I'm ready to get off the street. There is not a place for them to go.
Right.
And so if you don't have that fundamental thing, then again, the root causes, you're not getting to that. You're not solving that.
Right. And the people we spoke to, you know, some of them firmly believe the people on Aurora Avenue are being coerced. One of the people we spoke to said, actually, it's a choice for some of them. Some of them are not being coerced at all. But they all agreed on this key issue that no matter what, if they left, they would have nothing to go to.
Yeah.
There is not capacity. There are not resources. So
and if you're not making, frankly, rent through the work anymore and you don't have the protection of somebody who was trafficking you, the quote unquote protection, I should say, then what do you turn to?
Right. And I will say Katie Wilson in her speech about the barriers and closing the streets down last week, she mentioned that one of the things she wants to do is increase SPD presence and make it more targeted in that area. She also wants to make sure that the Human Services Department is providing outreach to some of the groups that work directly with communities who are doing sex work. So clearly there is this multi-pronged approach where people are recognizing, regardless of the circumstances of your relationship to sex work, you need resources and you need an ability to leave if you would like to.
Yeah.
You need a place to go after.
I will say Peter Orr, the neighbor who was one of the organizers of that march a few weeks ago, I spoke with this morning, said, you know, they're really hoping for a precinct on Aurora. And that might be a long shot, but I mean, they've gone so far as to talk to people who own a building that, you know, are saying we could rent to the city and, you know, all of this stuff. They want to see more than just a couple extra patrol officers. But again, we're going to follow up on that later this week. We're hoping to have the city attorney, Erica Evans. We are hoping to talk with some people, Kathy Moore and others who, were in favor of the SOAP order, the SOAP law that was passed. We'll have more as Soundside continues this week, turning the page, lightening things up, and also heating things up a little bit. Okay, it's hot.
It's so hot.
That is our last story on Front Page. The National Weather Service Seattle office says that all official climate sites in our forecast area set new record highs yesterday. SeaTac hit 89, Seattle hit 85, Olympia 92, Hoquiam 86, Bellingham 84, Quileute 87. I was sweltering. I do not have central air, as I believe most of us in the Seattle area still don't, although that's been the number with air conditioning has been climbing.
Yeah.
So the World Cup teams get hydration breaks now.
They do, yeah.
What do you do to beat the heat, Maleeha, Syed?
I drink water, but I need to be better about it because I usually just hydrate with coffee, which is obviously not the best.
I don't think that's doctor recommended.
No, it actually makes it worse.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to try to go see a couple of movies, and I think that'll help me get out of my home and also not be out in the sun. Yeah, I walked into work today and I was just feeling it. And it was like 9 a.m.
Yeah.
What do you usually do?
Me too. I was walking to, I always walk to and from the train. It was already pretty muggy this morning. Movies are a great call. I do ice packs. I have I have ice packs in my freezer that I just hang out with when I'm, working in my office or something at home. Any opportunity to go jump in a lake around here is a great one.
Yeah.
Can I just get back to the World Cup hydration breaks,
We
though?
have to talk about it.
Because this is new for this World Cup. This is something purists are really mad about. It does feel like a huge momentum killer when they stop in the middle of a half to go and take some sips of water. I don't want to begrudge guys who are out working really hard in 85, 90 degree heat from taking sips of water.
Totally.
But mostly it just feels like a chance for FIFA to sell the broadcast ad space.
Yes.
And it doesn't feel like soccer anymore.
No, a lot of critics are saying it's just breaking up the entire flow. And I guess from what I understand, broadcasters don't technically have to cut to commercial, but they are in some cases.
Now.
So.
Yeah, this is still a United States sporting event.
Right.
Well, thank you so much. You know who never breaks up the flow and the momentum is Maleeha Syed, producer on Soundside. Thank you so much for being here for Front Page.
Thanks for having me. This was so fun.
Thanks for listening to Soundside. Don't forget you can listen live on KUOW 94.9 Seattle at noon and 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, or anytime right here online at KUOW.org, or of course on your favorite podcast app.